I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
That's Booby.
I'm Colby and Chip and Ghosty.
We're
making history.
Doing something we've never done before. So go ahead.
As soon as I finished editing the other one, I Am. How do you say the band's name?
AMIENSUS.
Yeah. While I was editing, I went in. I don't usually do this because I like the accuracy in my editing, but I was like, I need to hear that song again. So I put the song on in another tab while I was editing. And then all of a sudden, Vin's starting to leave the room. It's 2:00 in the morning here, okay? We have a baby, we have a bunch of kids, and he's
got a kid visiting.
We have a kid visiting, we have a ton of kids here right now. So Vin goes to leave the room, and then, you know how YouTube will just kind of like put on the next one? I think it's the next one. This one started coming on for like 2 seconds, or well, a couple seconds. We heard
so I turn around.
Here. He goes, "What is that?" I was like, "Babe, it's the next one." And I was like, "Please, let's just do another review."
We're trying not to listen to any new music.
Right. So it's a genuine reaction, you know?
So the compromise we came to was, let's just record another one. So.
Because we really want to hear it. And this is the first time that this has happened, that we've done this.
We've never done this.
Yeah.
We've never done this.
So
but
this is exciting.
At the end of the day, that's what the channel is about. It's about sharing music that we love and finding it with each other and all that. So
I know
it's all part of it.
Yeah, we're shouting out my insanity again.
We're very, very excited. So let's do it. Become the Fear, AMIENSUS.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Go.
When the blade of loss cuts through, to find myself again, I cannot comprehend. To walk this road, the path of desolation, far from the sun, cold isolation, abandoned here in silent apathy, by all those once so endeared. To understand, I must become the fear. To prevail, I must become the enemy. To reclaim dominion, surrender to defeat. To rise to elation, I must fall into despair.
their drummer is very high talent. That drummer is a high talent. And whoever is writing these lyrics are crazy. What did you think the song was about?
I don't know. I mean, I got my own personal stuff out of it, but I don't know what it's actually about.
What jumped out to you?
It reminded me of Jesus, and I don't want to take these people's music and keep making it all about ourselves, but that's what it was for me, because he said, like, when he was talking about to prevail I must become the enemy, to reclaim dominion, surrender to defeat, to rise to elation I must fall into despair, like the cross and all that entailed, and the humiliation and the shame aspect of it. And he, you know, a lot of times Jesus becomes, you know, people's enemy by telling them the truth, you know, like their situation that they're in or whatever, and people, you know, he becomes the enemy, even though, you know, oh man.
Yeah, this song seemed to be about like him realizing, you know, like your own personal growth, and life is so paradoxical that sometimes, like, in order to beat something, you have to kind of surrender to it to some degree, like to get in there. So he talks about that, like in order to exercise dominion, he has to surrender or whatever. Where did that go?
At the end, it was talking
something
about it.
dominion, which was really interesting, because there, to prevail I must become the enemy, to reclaim dominion, surrender to defeat, to rise to
literally
elation.
the passage I just read.
Yeah, well, the dominion part was really crazy to me, because there's this concept called the dominion mandate in Christianity, and it basically means when God told us, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, that human beings are the kings and queens of this planet. But most of us don't live that way. We live under the boot of something. And, you know, if you're, you know, I've got drug addiction on my mind for obvious reasons, you know why, but in order to, you know, they always talk about, in order to get better, you have to hit rock bottom. And in order to overcome the drug that's dominating you, you have to first admit that the drug beat you. And you have to admit that it's, you know, ruined your life. Not that you don't take personal responsibility, but the acquiescence to the defeat is then, you know, they're on their way up.
Yeah.
But when a person continues to lie to themselves and say that they can control it, they're not being defeated by it, then they're in trouble, because then it's going to create, there's this false idea that you can control the drug and whatever, even though everybody around you knows that you're an addict.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to do that. And so I love the, you know, it's the same thing, like to rise to elation I must fall to despair, you know. And, you know, I was, you know, in despair for a lot of years, a long time, and you know, now I realize I had to go through that stuff, you know, and to get to you, you know. So you are the elation that I have, but I went through a lot of stuff prior to that to get to this point with you. And you know, there's this interesting verse in Romans 8 where Paul says that we will reign with Christ if we suffer with him.
Yes. Yeah.
So you cannot get to that level of like ultimate happiness without going through, you know, they said through many tribulations we must enter the kingdom of God. So there's just a lot of like the paradoxes of that, you know. To be a leader is to be a servant, and to live you have to die to yourself, and to be exalted you have to humble yourself. So there's a lot of paradoxes in life and in the universe that
part of joy is suffering sorrow.
Right. And then, you know, so I think a lot of it is just like him reflecting back on, okay, like this life, this is what's been going on with me so far, and I think he figured out, wait a second, there's all these paradoxes here. The understanding lies entwined with all I fear. And the name of the song is Become the Fear, so it's like, you know, I say this all the time, the opposite of love is not hate, it's fear, right? So to understand I must become the fear, the understanding lies entwined with all I fear, it's to embrace fear, etc. And fear is a very, very, very interesting topic.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's hard to define. Like how would you define fear?
I would say the feelings that alter your behavior because of what they may do. Yeah, I think, yeah, well, I guess that's the best I can come up with for right now.
Yeah, and I just think that fear probably is the easiest way to say it is the apprehension that you are threatened. Mm-hmm. You know, so it's in your mind. There's some sort of threat there. Mm-hmm. You know, whether it's this girl's gonna break up with me. You're threatened that the relationship is gonna fracture, or it's we can't let these people in our country because they're criminals, which is you feel threatened by them. I mean, you fill in the blank. Whatever it is, it's this idea that somehow you are being threatened, mm-hmm. and most people's response to that is to run away. You know, you talk about flight or fight.
Yes.
But he's saying, well, actually, there's a third way. You can actually embrace the fear, go into it, become it. And once you embrace the fear, then you come out on the other side. Which there's a game that I used to play with myself all the time when I was scared of something. And usually it was when I was younger, especially, and you know, people used to dare me to do stuff all the time. And so, like, we had this little bike ramp, and we had this hill. Mm-hmm. And nobody would go down the hill and do the bike ramp. So it's either you went halfway and did the bike thing, or you moved the ramp and then you. And so stuff like that. They're like, "Oh, Vin, I bet Vin won't do it," which they knew that would guarantee that I would attempt. And so then I'd be riding, and then everybody was basically like, once I got to the top of the little hill, people basically changed their mind. They were like, "Nah, we don't need you to do it. We don't need you to do it. Like, you're good." And I remember thinking to myself, like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is, you know, I break my leg or something. You know, and it's like, it'll suck, it'll hurt for a while, but other than that, what's the worst that can happen? And, you know, I'd be all shaky and nervous, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's the worst thing that can happen, I'm good. And then it would work. Mm-hmm. You know, and so I've been in other situations where I've been like, this is not good.
Yeah.
This is not good. And then I was like, well, what's the worst that can happen? But it didn't really work in those situations.
I was going to say, for me, that bike thing, that wouldn't have worked, because I would have been like, I could snap my neck and be paralyzed. That was always I was like so afraid of being paralyzed when I was a kid. Yeah.
I remember one time asking a guy, because we were going to go off do something. I was like, man, just like, what's the worst that can happen? He was like, well, you could die. Your family could never see you again. And I was like, that's true. That's really true. I was like, that's not very comforting. Like, I need to be focused for what we're about to enter into. And he was like, well, you asked me. You know, he's one of those people. But, you know, aside from that situation, you know, a lot of it is like, okay, you break your leg, then what? Mm-hmm. Okay, you asked the girl out. She said no. Okay, are you going to die? You're not going to die. She just said no. But
you go up there and talk, and you stumble over your words.
You gotta ingest that fear and like go right into the epicenter of it. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you're never gonna. And that's, you know, I forgot who. I never understood this line. Go ahead.
Well, I always used to feel like I did games too, but mine wasn't what you did. I would do that. I would like fake it till I make it, basically, type of thing. Like, if I was very afraid of something, I would like put out this energy that like I wasn't scared of it at all, and I would like go in there just headstrong into the thing. And then I, you know, most times found that whatever I was, fear was much bigger than the possibilities of what might happen. So the fear of what if something happens is worse than actually just breaking your leg, you know, like whatever it is, you know. So fear just makes everything feel so giant and so overwhelming that, you know, you can live in a false reality if you're just being driven by your fears. So I would just say, I'm just gonna and I would just go into it, and then, you know, nine times out of 10, you know, I'd figure out that it was not as scary as I thought it was, and, you know, the thing was over. And then when you like come through on the other side of fear, you feel very empowered. So,
you do.
Yeah, it can.
You do. You do. I felt too empowered. I felt like I was invincible. I was like, we went through this, da 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 da. Everybody came back clean. We're good. I'm like, like, You're not invincible, but you do. You feel like, man, and again, this is why we do roller coasters, right? You get a fear of heights. It's like, all right, boom, we're gonna do this, and you gotta face it, And it's true. It's the anticipation. It's like the Green Mile, like the walk is worse than the actual dying.
I saw that movie.
Yeah, and it's just so. That's a big thing that I think about with fear a lot. When I was a kid, I never understood this line, there's nothing to fear but fear itself. And I never really understood the
It's
line.
funny, I used to think about it a lot too.
I never understood. I'm like, what is he talking about? Like, there's a lot of things to be afraid of. What are you talking about? Then, during, global studies class, it was like, I'm pretty sure it's during World War II. And I was like, this makes no sense. There's a lot of things to fear. Like, one would be a German bullet. What are you talking about? But his point was, look, acquiescing to these Germans at the time, and we got love for Germany, long live Germany. It's just you had a little blip in your history. But like, his point was acquiescing all our rights and who we are to these Germans due to the fact that we're afraid of them is the thing, right? Like, the only thing that's motivating you to do that is fear itself, and the alternative to what you're saying to quell your fear is worse than death. So the only thing you have to be afraid of is the intimidation that these Germans are putting out to you, which, it's a standard practice that you project a certain type of energy to scare somebody even into not fighting you, period. So, like, it was just very, very, like, the concept of that, and to being able to embrace your fear, which can have a lot of ramifications if you're talking about, like, politically, for example. If we would embrace our fear, then we probably would be nicer to people, at the border.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that ICE is a Nazi thing, and I'm not saying that, these facilities are concentration camps. I'm not saying that. I'm saying is we would just be nicer, I think. I think we wouldn't have a man facing 20 years in jail for not, for putting water out there for these people. If we were a country that collectively embraced our fear. So I think that's a really good one. It's like you embrace fear, and that helps you to embrace somebody else, right?
Yeah.
But if you run from fear, then you're going to run from people. That fear and the reaction to it separates people from people. So I just think that, the concept of becoming the fear is a crazy concept to me. Reclaim desire to see the unknown, abandon time, erase eternity. Strength is attained by the fire of yearning. The path to acceptance is a journey without end. So I just think that this guy is reflecting on life, and I think he's giving us his philosophy on how to get through this thing, and the wisdom that he's gained in his time on the earth. What do you give the song?
It was a 9 for me.
I agree. Solid 9. This band is crazy. I tweeted them. I'm like, hey, we gotta talk.
Yeah, you know what's funny is your tweet came out before the review is gonna come out, so they'll be like, why? Why
Right.
should I talk to you? Who are you?
Right, we haven't published it.
Right, you know what I mean?
Right, so I'm like, hey, we gotta talk. Like,
He'll like Google me, what? Who are you?
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, it's coming right along.
All right, so, Amiensus, talk to us, please.
Yes.
Be nice to us.
Yes.
Vin
It's an
out.
interview. Sorry, out.
Gone.